Govinda, Govinda. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, we're settling in. Everything seems to be working except the microphone. The volume on the microphone is not working. The volume on the microphone is not working. So we'll go as if it's working. And he'll adjust it as we go along. This is a rather succinct presentation on Srila Prabhupada's little timeline, is a nice way to describe Prabhupada's journey on the Jaladuta, as you see. Now everybody here knows. Everybody knows. There we go. Everybody knows the Jaladuta. And the Jaladuta is a cargo ship. And this is the boat that Prabhupada was given passage, a little cabin on the cargo ship to make his journey is actually from Calcutta, not from Bombay, from Calcutta down the southern tip of India and back around the eastern side, western side, and then etc. The journey to America. And as you may know, not only in Boston this is being celebrated, but some devotees, two groups of devotees from India described that they're having a 3-day festival this weekend. As in Boston, though also in India, a 3-day festival honoring Prabhupada's journey from India to America. It's a very important event. It's a very important event. So the subtitle, One Man's Improbable Journey into a Million Hearts. So let us begin in 1922. In 1922, pay attention please. In 1922, we'll try a fifth time. In 1922, Prabhupada was 25 years old. You know the history, but it's all this is you've heard before, so it's okay. He was a young man. He was married. He was still in college, and one of his friends invited him to go meet a sadhu, and Prabhupada declined. Oh, I've met so many sadhus that come. My father would invite a sadhu or 2 or 3 every day, and I wasn't so impressed because they weren't so sadhu-like, and so it's okay, no thank you. But his friend insisted, no, he's different. So by his friend's insistence, reluctantly, Prabhupada went. And the meeting was on the rooftop, as you see from this painting, in a building at Ulta Dunga Junction Road. You'll see what that place looks like today, because ISKCON identified the location and made it very nice up on the rooftop. But this is what it looked like, or something what it looked like. There's Bhaktisiddhanta, and there's Prabhupada with a little mustache there in the front foreground of the painting. And practically, as soon as Prabhupada was seated and Bhaktisiddhanta began his talk, he immediately singled out Srila Prabhupada. You're an educated young man. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world? First meeting, right? First words. Now, at this particular time, 1922, this was the peak of the Gandhi movement, the Swaraj movement. And Srila Prabhupada was a not only a follower, but a leader in the Gandhi movement. And so he didn't like the idea that Bhaktisiddhanta was presenting because well, he'll say Prabhupada gives his reasons, his reply. We'll hear the exchange a little bit. It's taken directly from Lilamrita. And some 13 years later, 14 years later, Srila Prabhupada received the same instruction in a letter, December 36. Become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Same message, so many years later. So Prabhupada's birth name was Abai Day. Day is the family name. Abai spoke up in answer to the words of Bhaktisiddhanta, which he had so tersely spoken in the first few seconds of their meeting. Who will hear your Chaitanya's message? It was like an us and them kind of a response. And we're a dependent country. First, India must become independent, Swaraj. How can we spread Indian culture if we're under British rule? Which sounds, it's an interesting argument. And Bhaktisiddhanta immediately, according to Lilamrita, spent 20 minutes answering that question. He replied in a quiet, deep voice that Krishna consciousness didn't have to wait for a change in Indian politics, nor was it, meaning Krishna consciousness, dependent on who ruled. Krishna consciousness was so important, so exclusively important, that it could not wait. Politics are always changing, but there's one eternal truth. And according to Lilamrita, the discussion went on, Bhaktisiddhanta went on for 20 minutes. Here's some of the references from Lilamrita. Whether one power or another ruled was a temporary situation, but the eternal reality is Krishna consciousness, and the real self is the spirit soul. No man-made political system, therefore, could actually help humanity. This was the verdict of the Vedic scriptures and the line of spiritual masters. Although everyone is an eternal servant of God, when one takes himself to be the temporary body and regards the nation of his birth as worshipable, he comes under illusion. Think about what's going on in world politics. The leaders and followers of the world's political movements, including the movement for Swaraj, were simply cultivating this illusion. So Bhaktisiddhanta, is bringing the discussion to a point of focus on the absolute truth. And the pursuit of the absolute truth is our Vedic culture, and it's not circumstantially created or checked. Ahaitukya pratyata. Real welfare work, whether individual, social, or political, should help prepare a person for his next life and help him reestablish his eternal relationship with the Supreme. and etc., etc. There's a lengthy passage, what Bhaktisiddhanta spoke. Now, Prabhupada's comment later was that from childhood, he was always the leader, and when there would be some discussion, he would always prevail. He was gifted in debate, and he never lost a debate. But here he was very happy to be defeated by Bhaktisiddhanta, and he accepted his words. 1922, sometime later, we hear where Bhaktisiddhanta gave initiation to Srila Prabhupada at the very same time, first and second initiation, some 10 years later, or no, 11 years later. So Allahabad, there's this painting, at least, of initiation ceremony. So Bhaktisiddhanta marked him and fanned the spark. So now we're already at 1933. So you add 11 years to 25, and now Prabhupada is 36 years old. And 37 years old, Prabhupada is with Bhaktisiddhanta in Vrindavan. So one of the things that Bhaktisiddhanta did is he took disciples to Vrindavan and did parikrama with them and showed them and explained and so forth and so on. This particular painting is meant to depict they were at Radhakund. That's in the background. And at Radhakund, Bhaktisiddhanta was walking around the kund of Radhakund, and there's some sannyasis behind him, and there's Prabhupada up front with his little boy on his hand. Bhaktisiddhanta gave instruction number 2. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Very succinct, very explicit. So 2 explicit instructions that became Prabhupada's life and soul. Prabhupada said, in later occasions, that he had the association of Bhaktisiddhanta 5 or 6 times total in his life. No, some of us had a little bit more than that, but not much more. And some persons had his Prabhupada's constant association. But Prabhupada explicitly said it was these moments of exchange, the message went in. I'm fully confident, this is the 3 years later, same place in Vrindavan. I'm fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of other members, meaning foreign lands. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. We've heard this one before. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's instruction. Here we go. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings unto the people in general, as well as philosophers and religionists. So, very clear mandate, and exactly it follows what Srila Prabhupada did. So the year, as you see on the screen, 1936, Prabhupada is now in his latter half of his 30s, still a young man. He still has his business, he still has his family, he still has his duties. Srila Prabhupada took both of these instructions as his life's mission. A period of deep reflection and study followed Srila Prabhupada's meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada greatly revered this scholarly spiritual teacher and read his writings assiduously. So the painting is meant to show in the wee hours of the night there's both Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The life and works of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also revealed much to Srila Prabhupada about the spiritual heritage of Krishna consciousness and helped inspire him to propagate the science of devotional service through the English language. Now, as you all know, and just remind you of what you all already know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision specifically was Lord Chaitanya's teaching should be taken outside of India. As an example, it's a well-known example, on the very year that Srila Prabhupada was born, which was 1896, in the very year that Srila Prabhupada was born, it's the same year, 1896, that Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in the English language, at his own expense, printed a small booklet, Sri Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts. And as you all know, that copies of that were found in McGill University Library, and then other places in the Far East, libraries of universities, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this idea. At least religionists and scholars should know who was Lord Chaitanya, because this is at a time when people didn't know, and they were in a closed situation. The printing press was just starting to happen. So mass distribution of this knowledge, other than handwritten copies of things, was made possible. So he took advantage of the technology improvement. And so skinny book, and there's copies of the book that have been reprinted in proper offset printing. The first half is a summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the life of Lord Chaitanya. So his life, and then his teachings in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's inimitable way. He had chosen to represent Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings in 10 itemized categories. He called it Dasa Mula Tattva. Dasa Mula Tattva, 10 essential teachings. So that was the second half of the book. So there's the 10 teachings, and then his life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya to the world. And as that was the vision of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, it also became the vision, shared vision of Bhakti Siddhanta. And he passed that same vision on to Srila Prabhupada. In 1953, Prabhupada is now 57 years old. His family name is Day. So his given name was Abai Day. When he was initiated, it was Abai Charan Day. So then it became AC, when he took sannyas, AC Bhaktivedanta was the sannyas title. AC Bhaktivedanta Swami. So 53, his business was flourishing, and then Krishna had another plan. Krishna's other plan was everything started to fall apart. This, that, and the other circumstances in business aren't so reliable. And Krishna pulled the plug. And so it was not doing well. And he understood Krishna doesn't want. And other things happened. And a few years later, Prabhupada left home in the vanaprastha stage of his life, turned the business that wasn't flourishing so well, but it's enough to sustain his family, he turned over to his sons so they could maintain his wife, and he took vanaprastha stage of life. The photograph here is Keshigat. Keshigat, from the river Jamuna, looking at the Ghat. There's that tall dome, that's the Madan Mohan temple, because the Madan Mohan temple is near Keshigat. So he stayed in a room, and he's 60 years old, and this is the room that Prabhupada stayed in. And the place near Keshigat later shifted to the Radha Damodar temple, but for a few years, he was living in the upper floor of an extended family kind of residential space. Radha Vinod was the name of the deity on the ground floor, because they were wealthy enough families have deities in Vrindavan. And so he had a room that, as you can see, has no kitchen, has no toilet. He didn't have anything, just 4 walls. And so he had to go downstairs and use the family toilet, and similarly use the family kitchen and do his cooking and offer to Krishna. And that was his way that he lived his life for some period of time. This is where he began his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Purports. Later it continued at the Radha Damodar temple. So he's just beginning. There was some preparation, this earlier message, and now he's preparing himself to fulfill what Bhaktisiddhanta wanted him to do. To not just to write books in English, but to go, because there was a big push, as you all know. There are many devotees, not just the 2 that were sent from to London to establish a temple in London. It was many persons were given that mandate. Prabhupada was one of the many, because it was something he wanted. It was very clearly he wanted. And they came back unsuccessful. But during this period of time, Prabhupada was living in this little room, beginning the Bhaktivedanta Purports, occasionally going into Delhi, because he was also simultaneously writing Back to Godhead magazine, because it was following Bhaktisiddhanta. In addition to books, Bhaktisiddhanta had 3 languages, English, Bengali, and Hindi, the Harmonist, etc., different publications, to give people in general a perspective. So it wasn't a big commitment to buy a big book. It was just something. So it was a starting point to introduce people to Krishna Bhakti as a preacher. And he was also looking for persons who could become donors to help him print the Bhagavatam, because he didn't have money. Whatever he had was turned over to his family, and he had no money. So donations, so he could print his book, the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1. In course of time, one of his godbrothers, Keshava Maharaj, in the center here, he persuaded Prabhupada, who was reluctant, Swamiji, you have this mandate from our spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. He wants you to go to the West. You'll be more effective if you accept sannyas, because it's a position of respect and title and so forth. So when he was given sannyas, Abhay Charan Das became A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And the other fellow by his side was a simultaneous second sannyasi, when at the time of Prabhupada's sannyas initiation. So 1959, and shortly thereafter, Prabhupada shifted to, by the arrangement of the person in charge of the Radharaman temple, the principal acharya of the Radharaman temple, had a friend that had rooms at the Radha Damodar temple, a friend, another colleague, another leading personality at the Radha Damodar temple. So he persuaded his friend to rent 2 rooms to Prabhupada, right in the courtyard of the temple. At that time, it was that kind of a place. And so Prabhupada went, and the contract was signed, and Prabhupada now had 2 rooms. This is one of those 2 rooms. This is the place where he did his little cooking. And as he's looking out the window, this is later, of course, but he's looking out the window at the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. The detail of why Rupa Goswami's samadhi is at the Radha Damodar temple is Jiva Goswami, when his guru departed this world, he arranged for his body to be placed at the Radha Damodar temple. So here's what it looked like. It's not the same anymore, but this is what it looked like then. This is the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada would, looking out the window, and there's a nice description. He prayed intently to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and his spiritual master for the necessary strength and capacity to carry out this mission, because he was feeling mission impossible. Hey Rupa, hey Sanatana, hey Guru Dev, please give me your mercy. Without your mercy, I cannot do anything. Give me the mercy. Give me the strength that I may fulfill your orders. And this was his way of life. Now, here's Rupa Goswami appearing before Bhaktisiddhanta. Prabhupada told later, as he was feeling this incapacity, Rupa Goswami appeared before him. It's possible, and it happened. These things do happen. Encouraging him this way, Maharaj, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna. You will be successful, I guarantee, because I will be right there with you all the time. That's big encouragement. And Prabhupada took this to heart. There's a little detail, I think you'll appreciate this little detail. This is a photograph of a fellow that was a Babaji living nearby, not at Radha Damodar temple, but nearby the Radha Damodar temple. And what happened was, those devotees that were taking interviews in order to get factual information of Prabhupada's life in Vrindavan, he was one of the people interviewed. And here's a little background on Hridayananda Babaji. He was born at Radhakund, and he had been a pujari for 78 years. He lived near, not at, the Radha Damodar temple. And the beginning of the interviewer was asked, did you ever meet Prabhupada? Did you know Prabhupada? And he immediately became ecstatic. Never have I seen anyone, a sadhaka, do sadhana like he did. I've lived all my life in Braja, and I've never seen anyone like him. Prabhupada did many arduous things. He worked very hard at the Radha Damodar temple. At that time, whoops, oh, Krishna. Krishna. The text just disappeared. Anyway, this is what I remember. He would sometimes hear a voice in the middle of the night, the dark of night. There's no street lights, and he'd hear somebody crying. And he went out to find out what was going on. And then he saw Prabhupada with a broom in front of the samadhi of Rupa Goswami, offering these prayers to Rupa Goswami. Please enable me to do this service. His humility was profound. His mood of service was remarkable. And the dedication was the instruction of a spiritual master. Of course, the instruction of a spiritual master comes through disciplic succession, and ultimately one can say it comes from Rupa Goswami. But never have I seen anyone like him. And when I found out later, many years later, that someone had gone to America and established the Hare Krishna movement, I was not at all surprised because of the intensity of his devotion. He spoke so glowingly. I mean, he was not a Hare Krishna guy. Here we go. So later, so Prabhupada, what's going on? Yes. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Yeah. So Prabhupada's preparing his books. Gradually he got his books. And one location, he was at a program in Mathura, a Mathura businessman who was presently living in Agra, and he met his man, and the man, Srila Prabhupada and the man were having some discussion, and the man confided in Prabhupada that he was very unhappy. His son, Gopal, migrated to America, was studying in engineering college in America. He had an ambition to become an engineer in America, and he married an American lady. And that the father was very upset. So Gopal Agrawal was the son's name, and so Prabhupada wrote, some weeks later, he wrote a letter to Gopal saying, "Hey, Gopal, would you be so kind as to send a letter of invitation that I can present to the visa office in here, American visa office in India, and I can get a tourist visa to go to America with your letter of invitation?" So Gopal obliged. And many of you have seen, when Prabhupada made it finally to Butler, Pennsylvania, you see the picture of the little boy Gopal. The little boy Gopal became a big boy. This is, much later. His son was named Brij. And there's Gopal and some ISKCON devotees in the background. And with that letter of invitation, Prabhupada submitted an application, and sure enough, he was granted a 30-day tourist visa to go to America. So that's very nice. He didn't even have a passport, but now he had a tourist visa, so he had to go get a passport. And now he's got a passport, some books, in the making at least, and he doesn't have passage because he doesn't have any money. So one of the places he went was Bombay, and somewhere in Bombay, he met Sumati Morarji, who was the owner of a steamship company, Scindia Steamship Company. And Prabhupada asked Sumati Morarji, in your cargo ships, do you have passenger rooms? And you could give me passage to go to America? And Sumati Morarji rained on the parade. Swamiji, this isn't a good idea. You're old. You've never been in cold climate like that. You'll never survive. She didn't want to say yes. But she said later in interviews, he was so insistent against my advice, I agreed. He gave him a seat or a little room in the cargo ship, the Scindia steamship line. And that cargo ship was the Jaladuta. So now he has a passport and a visa and a passage and his Bhagavatams, because by this time, so many years later, he had completed the first three volumes of Canto 1, and they were printed in the south of India, in Cochin, and so he boarded the cargo ship, and here's the date of his departure, August, so it's, consider today's date, or the date of his arrival was in September, so it's a 36-day voyage, something like that, and there he is boarding the Jaladuta. And what he had done to raise the funds and get support, etc., he had printed this little one-page flyer. And notice how he spells the word Bhagavatam. It's different than in the Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, India's message of peace and goodwill. No, suitable for the time, suitable for the audience. So when he was in India, that was his appeal to people to assist him in funding the printing of the book. He had this little one-page flyer. In America, it would be different than a sannyasi interacting with pious and influential Indian gentlemen. He would be no one, a foreigner. And there was no tradition of sadhus, no temples, no free ashrams. But when he thought of the books he would be bringing, transcendental knowledge in English, he became confident. When he met someone in America, he would give him a flyer. Srimad Bhagavatam, India's message of peace and goodwill. And this way he would sell his Bhagavatams, and although he had no money, he had books. So he's boarding the ship, and he kept a diary. I just heard when Prabhupada was in, I mentioned earlier, I've been reading a very nice book by Vishaka. We're okay? You sure? Okay. 5 years, 11 months. Vishaka and Yadubar, wife and husband, that did filming and documentaries and photographs, and that was their service to Srila Prabhupada and the Hare Krishna movement for years. Now she's the president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. I'd like to be president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Ladies in particular. It's a very prestigious, prominent place. And, a lot of devotees and a lot of VIPs, and I don't know how she does it, but she's a very capable lady. So at some point in time, Prabhupada's health was bad, and so he had gone to Rishikesh to revive his health, and Yadubar was his driver and his cook and his, did everything that Prabhupada needed, massage and everything. And his health didn't get better for that period of time. But when they were together, Prabhupada gave him the diary. Prabhupada kept things meticulously. And it doesn't say how it happened, but Prabhupada, gave to Yadubar his diary of the record, and this is taken from that record. Today, the 20th of August, the captain arranged for a meeting on board the Jaladuta on account of Janmashtami Day, and I spoke for an hour on the philosophy and teachings of Lord Sri Krishna. All the officers attended the meeting, and there was distribution of prasadam. The matter was radiographed to Sumati Morarji in Bombay. The ship is stranded, spelled wrong, stranded in the Arabian Sea for about 4 miles away from the coast. So it just somehow got stalled. Then going further, about 10 a.m. we are now at the dockyard in Cochin. The dock is peculiar because it is by nature full of small islands. Some of the islands are full with nice hutments, formerly known as British Islands. I saw my books from Bombay arrive in 5 cases, and the agents loaded them on the ship at 4 p.m. So, books are on the ship, Prabhupada's on the ship, and then in the course of the journey, for a period of time, that in the journal that he was keeping, he indicates he had 2 heart attacks. So he wasn't keeping his journal during that period of time. And of course, this celebrated the risk Sumati Maharaji was right. Who knows if you'll live? Prabhupada one evening with a few disciples at his feet reminisced about how he had come to America in 1965 and had suffered 2 heart attacks at sea. They say that anyone who gets a 3rd heart attack, they must expire. I had 2 heart attacks on the ship, and then in New York, a 3rd one paralyzed. Left side was paralyzed. I do not know how I was saved. And one girl, the captain's wife, she studied astrology. She said, Swamiji, if you can survive your 70th year, then you'll live for 100 years. Well, he survived 70th year, but not 100. And the painting is illustrating something that happened on the ship. Krishna came after his 2nd heart attack, placed his hand on Prabhupada's chest, and gave similar assurance as Rupa Goswami had given to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada continued, somehow or other, I have survived my 70th year. I do not know whether. They say I will live for 100 years, but 70th year was severe. 3 heart attacks and paralysis. And I was without any family. At that time, none of you were with me. I was alone. I wasn't dependent on anyone, but on the ship, I saw that Krishna was going to save me. I was going for his mission. So he later elaborated besides this, Krishna showed himself in his cabin, and that same night that Krishna showed himself in his cabin, he had a dream, and the dream is what's in this upper part of the painting. The upper part of the painting depicts that Krishna and many of the avatars of the personality Godhead were flying in the ship. Lord Krishna, along with his incarnations, were rowing a boat. And
Krishna, is Maharaj speaking? I can't hear anything.
Prabhuji, they said the audio is not working. It's asked to watch it on YouTube. Yeah.
Our technology team is working on it. The team of 2, son and mother. I'll continue, then we'll. So they, as you see, this is a detailed painting, but various avatars of the Lord were on the ship, and the front of the ship there's Krishna and Prabhupada, and they were making sure the ship made it to its destination. That was in his dream. He saw the ship. September 10th, we're getting close to the actual date of Prabhupada's arrival. I am feeling, this is very celebrated passage. I am feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan and my lords Sri Govinda, Gopinath, Radha Damodar. The only solace is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which I am tasting the nectarine of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I have left Bharata Bhumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order. I have no qualification, but have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of His divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy, so far away from Vrindavan. Picture the risk and the courage, the fearlessness, the determination. His life is on a little thread, and he's going forward anyways. So September 13th. Today I have disclosed my mind to my companion, Lord Sri Krishna. There is a Bengali poem made by me today in this connection. Now, Prabhupada was a literary person along with everything else, and so here's in the records of along with his diary is a little poem that he wrote to Krishna. The captain told that they had never seen such calmness of the Atlantic. I said it is Lord Krishna's mercy. His wife asked me to come back with him so that they may have a common crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. If Atlantic would have shown its usual face, perhaps I would have died. But Lord Krishna has taken charge of the ship. So we're almost there. Notice the date, Monday, September 13th. Here we are, September 17th in Boston. So this is obviously a later Prabhupada visiting the Commonwealth Pier. Some of us will be going to the Commonwealth Pier and the boat tour and all of that on Saturday in Boston, or Sunday, excuse me. And here is the celebrated Markini Bhagavat Dharma that is in Prabhupada's handwriting on the left. And I'm going just to slowly read it. September 18th. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here, otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Could you find out, are they able to hear now?
YouTube Live is working, the Zoom has some audio issues.
Okay.
Yeah. YouTube Live is working.
Okay. Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion, absorbed in material life. They think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you're the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Oh, Lord, I'm simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. No, it's the same mood as back at the Radha Damodar temple, sweeping in front of the Samadhi Rupa Goswami with the same mood, the same message, and he's still fixed in that message, in that mood. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore if you like, by your will, they can also be released. Mataji, do the needful. If you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation, and if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So, if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when the transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So, if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, O Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I've been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. So, this is a celebrated series of prayers to Krishna. He's still in Boston. He hasn't yet gone to New York. The very next day, he goes to New York. And then he disembarks in New York. Today is the 38th day of our journey, and we reached New York port at 12:30 p.m., about 3 hours later than the scheduled time. So he's been beseeching for a long period of time the personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his spiritual master and the predecessor acharyas again and again and again for the necessary purity and power and capacity to convey the message, to be the bearer of the message that he was asked to carry. So that's the title, for those of you that came a little bit late, the improbable journey. Extraordinary journal. Improbable journey into a million's hearts. So many years in the making, and it's circling back all over the world in ISKCON. We're not just in Boston, but all over the world. This event is a very important event. It's an unprecedented event. A sadhu crossing the ocean, with nothing in his hand. All the things that might be essentials to make a mission possible weren't in his hand. I mean, you've heard it. He had 14 rupees. And there's no currency exchange in the U.S. for 14 rupees at that time. It was worthless. 14 rupees. And when he got off the boat, there was nobody there to receive him. In a heavy city, New York City, Prabhupada said, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. Where's he going to stay? What's he going to do? So somehow he made his way to Port Authority, the bus station, and then he somehow got a ticket to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, went to Butler, Pennsylvania, and much to Gopal Agarwal's surprise, he had a guest. Knock, knock, knock. So he stayed for some days at the Agarwal's home, but that wasn't his business to be in Butler, Pennsylvania. So he went back to New York City, and the story of the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement is super fantastic, but the journey to get here is super fantastic. Who's going to do what he did? I mean, the two sannyasis that were traveling, this is important, the two sannyasis that were traveling from India to England had the support of the entire Gaudiya Math. That is to say, each of their little temples, the Gaudiya Math temples at that time meant, something, just little place. So, but they had something, and then those something places had members, and the members gave something, and so there was some fund collected so the two sannyasis could live in England. Prabhupada didn't have that. He didn't have anything. He had and the departure of the two sannyasis was delayed. There was a scheduled departure, but they were waiting. Bhaktisiddhanta was waiting for a book that the professor in Orissa was writing on Sri Krishna Chaitanya, because Bhaktisiddhanta, wanted the people in England, in the English language, to know who is Lord Chaitanya. That was the mission. So when you read, if you know that background, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Introduction, is a summary of Lord Chaitanya's life, introducing the Western world, the English-speaking parts of the world, to who is Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya's message is Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam is Lord Chaitanya's message, vice versa. So he was giving the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, such a vision. So Krishna was with him. Although Krishna with him, 2 heart attacks. And uncertainty to the maximum. Amazing. So that's our little discussion for this evening, and a little bit warm up for what's going to be happening in Boston over the weekend. You want to contribute something?
Didn't he have a 3rd heart attack in New York?
What's that again?
Didn't he have a 3rd heart attack in New York?
Yeah, but it happened like a year later,
Yeah.
and it was in New York, and he was taken to the Jersey Shore. But yes, in New York City, but not right away. About a year later.
I remember that. And in 1965, the conversion was 7 rupees for $1.
Yeah.
So he had $2.
But again, he couldn't convert because there was no currency exchange. Okay, anyone else? Pretty awesome message to digest. Yes?
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this wonderful presentation on Prabhupada traveling to America. I have a question. How is his family right now? Like the few years back, Vrindavan Chandra, Prabhupada's son, who came to while Prabhupada was boarding the Jaladuta, he came to see of Prabhupada, but he passed away. So who else is there in his family right now?
You want to know where is his family now?
Yes.
That's your question? I don't know where their family is now. His wife is no longer. And then his sons are existing, and his grandchildren, their sons are there. But their claim to fame. Their claim to fame, meaning that they're the sons of this great personality, they didn't see him as a great personality. They didn't mind the claim to fame, but they didn't see him that way. They were interviewed, but they didn't. So not too much about their interview because they saw him as dad. That was like it. And dad left home, left us caring for mom. So they weren't happy. They weren't antagonistic, but they weren't happy. And they weren't seeing him as we see him, or the Vaishnavas see him. They weren't non-Vaishnava, non-devotee antagonists, but they were respectful. Like we would expect they would be. That's my understanding. There may be someone that had a closer opportunity to interview these individuals, but that's my understanding.
I don't know if it was his granddaughter. Some of his family passed away in a flood. I remember it was there somewhere that I read in Maya course, and there was a huge flood, and some of his family passed away in that flood.
Anyone else? Yes, in the back.
So, the difficulty Srila Prabhupada went through, and even early days of the movement when
Oh,
he was living in the Lower East Side Bombay and went through a hellish situation. Was he ever disappointed and thought like, this is too much and I want to go back?
two things. It's not just in the Bowery. Even when he was staying in Dr. Mishra's Dr. Mishra's studio, had an office that just it was an office. Didn't have a bathroom, didn't have a kitchen, it was just an office. Someone broke into that office at night and stole the two little possessions he had, a tape recorder and something else, some other equipment. Typewriter, yes, typewriter. So, yeah, awful conditions. Now, yes, Prabhupada describes he would regularly go to the shipyard and check the schedule, ships going back to India, thinking, maybe I should go back. But he didn't go back. He was just like entertaining the thought. But not obviously not seriously, because he could have gone. But he didn't go because he had a mission. So he stayed and extended his visa. That's a whole other thing. A tourist visa, extending a tourist visa, and extending a tourist visa, and extending a tourist visa. That's red tape. So
What is Krishna's thinking here? I mean, he had like an intimate experience with Krishna.
This is something Prabhupada was interviewed on the Manhattan Temple 10th floor where Prabhupada's quarters were, and some reporter had come, and he was asking Prabhupada, "Does Krishna speak to you directly?" And Prabhupada said yes. And then he asked, he pursued the question, and again and again and again. And the persons in the room were shocked, because Prabhupada was one devotee who was in the room, Ram Eswar, who was the BBT trustee at the time, said, Super Soul is in the heart. When one gets intelligence from Super Soul, one can take it that Krishna is instructing through the agency of Super Soul in the heart. And Prabhupada put his hand on the desk and said, no. Krishna speaks directly. And everyone in the room was like, it's in Vishaka's book, because she was present. She was taking photographs of the whole thing. And Krishna speaking directly through the whole thing. Not at a certain point in time he started speaking directly. Krishna speaking. So this is an exceptional, elevated position. Krishna speaking directly. Then Prabhupada clarified, just like you and I are speaking. So Krishna is speaking directly. A pure devotee doesn't do anything without consulting Krishna. So it's unique, a very personal, loving relationship on a mission on Krishna's behalf. So do I turn left or right? Do I stay or do I go? What to do now?
Why he put Srila Prabhupada through so much trouble?
Why was he put in so much trouble? That's your question?
Yeah, I mean,
But he understood. That's okay. But he understood that's test. Bhaktisiddhanta, his spiritual master's teaching is that Krishna is strengthening one's ardor. one's determination by challenges. And he was able to see the challenge as Krishna's giving me an opportunity to become stronger. And that's, you can look at it this way, look at it that way, or the other way. That's how Prabhupada looked at it. He was fearless, not foolish. Fearless, because he knew Krishna was with him. Krishna's guiding him, instructing him personally, like we're just talking with one another right now. Krishna was there. So we don't have that leisure or license or privilege. Prabhupada did. So why hardship? Krishna wants, you can do with me whatever you like. So why would Krishna like? Success came, but success came with challenge. And Krishna liked it that way, so that's the way Krishna did it, and that he accepted it. Without fear, without hesitation, he was considering what is, that's okay. His vision and determination and everything about him was otherworldly. And those that had his intimate association understood it in course of time.
It also feels more gratitude when I personally think of the hardships and what we owe to him.
Yeah.
I feel more indebted or
Yeah.
deeper gratitude.
And now what? Assist. Okay. Mataji?
Yes, how did he survive in 14 rupees? And is there any details? How did
No. If there are details, I don't know. But, Krishna maintained him. That's one way to say. And now, how did Krishna maintain him? That's the next question. So, he had his books, and people gave something for his books. Prabhupada would go from bookstore to bookstore with his books and sell his books to the bookstore. And then, because the people there weren't, this vast array of non-resident Indian families that are well established, and he just went to them and, I'm a sannyasi, please give a kind donation so I can have my breakfast tomorrow morning.
He lived in Manhattan, right?
For some period of time, yes. But he was given a free room by Dr. Mishra for one period of time. And then others made arrangements gathered some funds and got him a little place. And so he had a little following with people that had little resources. So he just, day by day. It's, it's incredible. It's austere, but it's like most people don't live like that. In Prabhupada's word, I was like a vagabond. And he knows words. He knows what vagabond means. But he had full dependence on Krishna. So you're asking details. How did it happen? I don't know of any details of how it happened. But Krishna maintained him. And one of the main sources was his books. And then he was very frugal, and he lived on next to nothing. A little bit away from next to nothing was a little bit less than next to nothing. And then more books. So it was preaching, but also a means to maintain. So people that gave money in India to print the books were maintaining him by selling the books in America. And part of his mission. And at a certain point in time, like Gopal Agrawal likely gave him something. When you're going back to New York City, you need something to live in New York City. Here's something. The details are not provided. Krishna maintained him. Yes, Krishna Priya.
This question is regarding how the next generation devotees and all the future generation devotees can continue to appreciate Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, easy.
Specific challenges that I've seen is, like for us, hear from the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and probably because we have seen some sense of what hardships and challenges are, but the next generation they have so much comfort. And
Yeah.
when I especially tell them in Sunday school or anything, Prabhupada went through so many hardships. I don't think they're able to relate or understand the amount of hardships and challenges Prabhupada went through. And
Well, some people are going to understand because there are first-hand testimonials, abundant first-hand testimonials of what it was like. And I invite you to contact Sri Radhika because she's on her 5th book of, Prabhupada, those persons that were with Prabhupada. One of those that is Vishaka. But, Guru Das, Jamuna, Shamasundar, the 3 volumes, and it's like they're really good writers. And you get a close-up picture of what it was like. It's full of laughter, but also full of transcendental emotion. I mean, just reading Vishaka's book, I'll be honest, I'm at the point of tears many times just reading. So it's you get a sense of up close for those that are generations later. And that's me because I had association with Prabhupada, but Sri Radhika didn't have the association of Prabhupada, but she had the association of those that had the association. And it's it has shaped her emotions in regard for Srila Prabhupada, of who he was and what he was able to, how he was able to transform people despite so many hardships. And he always had time for the smallest little person. It wasn't just big stuff. There was big stuff, but the smallest little thing. He gave undivided attention to those that came forward with some it's so many nice things. The kind of character of our founder Acharya, what to speak of the sacrifices. I mean, the whole picture is just profound. And if you don't read these literatures, it'll stop. Yeah, he underwent many sacrifices and hardships. Full stop. So there are these literatures that describe Lilamrita, of course, but so many. You want a list, ask Sri Radhika.
Who is Radhika?
Huh?
Who is Radhika?
She, Radhika Dasi, lives in Chicago, in Naperville, suburb of Chicago, and she reads a lot. She's a busy person, but she reads a lot, and she shares with me some of the things that she reads. And what it does to her heart to understand who is Prabhupada in a way that wasn't understood before reading these literatures. And so that invites her to read another one and another one.
So, thank you, Maharaj, for the class. And my question is, why did Prabhupada marry if he knew he was going to be a sannyasi?
He didn't marry because he knew he was going to be a sannyasi. He married because young men in his period of time, his father arranged for his marriage. So he accepted what his father wanted because he wasn't understanding, I'm going to be a world acharya one day, and so I don't need to get married. He followed his father. Yes, Mataji?
question is behind this extraordinary journey of Srila Prabhupada, the push is his guru's instruction he took as life insight.
Yeah. Can you hear her in the back? Yes? Okay, good. Speak.
So, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, how do we develop that kind of attitude?
By sadhu sangha.
What may happen in life?
Sadhu sangha. Yes.
So, Maharaji, could you please share your own experience with Sri Prabhupada?
We're going to be doing that over the weekend.
I'm not there.
You're not there.
No.
They'll be recorded. I'll say once I start, it's hard to stop. But I'll say without any other feeling like I'm missing out because I'm not in that inner circle. I wasn't feeling that. I'm not feeling that. Whatever happened, it happened. But largely, as a brahmachari, growing up in the Hare Krishna movement, I did what brahmacharis do. Yes, sir. And whoever is the authority, it's yes, sir. Menial servant. And so, I did what menial servant brahmacharis do. And because of that attitude, in course of time, I was given this responsibility, that responsibility, the other responsibility, because I knew who my authority was, and it was yes, sir. So for that reason, I had opportunities, I had some privilege, like, for example, morning walks when Prabhupada was in town. I didn't go to where he was, except in Mayapur and Vrindavan. So some association like that. But just the brahmachari, and then book distribution, because there was such emphasis, and so that I wasn't good at it, but I was dedicated to it, and I knew it was pleasing to Prabhupada, so that's what I did. And there were some opportunities when morning walks is one of the main ones, in classes and things like that. They're outstanding memories. But those were few and far and in between. The main was, bread and butter was from different capacities. Temple commander, Sankirtan leader, van leader, da-da-da. Increasing book distribution to assist as brahmacharis assist.
Which is your most beautiful memory with Srila Prabhupada?
Yes, she's asking the same question. Someone else in the back? Someone else in the back. Someone had their hand up. There are a few hands up. Okay, you have your hand up.
It's a
Question online, I thought so.
So, Vasad Prabhu is saying, Hare Krishna, how can we continue and keep the mood of Srila Prabhupada?
Okay, that's the same how-to question. Sadhu Sangha. Yes.
Thank you for the session. What qualities,
There's people way in the back, so you got to speak loud. Go.
as a devotee, what qualities does Prabhupada like from aspiring devotees or the devotees? Like which services pleases Prabhupada the most, and how we can...
Well, it's not the most. The mood of humble service. That's in short, simple language. Because when one has the mood of humble service, Krishna can the wall of false ego is diminished, and therefore Krishna can empower more easily, or one can invest powers in such a humble servant more easily. And then that person can do things beyond their own capacity because Krishna empowers them to do. So those that there's some, besides humble service, those that had a creative sense of the mission and understood the mood of our founder Acharya and in their own way took up the mission. And one of his missions was shaking at the roots the mistaken misconceptions of modern isms, modern this ism, that ism, the other ism, including science. For example, he wanted not only the Bhaktivedanta Institute, but he wanted devotees in general to challenge false ideas. The Darwinian evolution, life comes from matter. Challenge it. Speak boldly. And then persons that did so and presented information, or like he was honoring Vishnu Jan Swami for that very same thing. He took something that Prabhupada had said in classes and put it in a little booklet and was circulating that little booklet in his street Sankirtan, because he was the leader of the Kirtan party. But he wanted the message, so Prabhupada liked it. Not not in an insulting way, but in a spirited way. If that's not right, then what's right? Life comes from life, not life comes from matter. It's a mistake, and Darwinian evolution was popular, and Prabhupada looked at the bull in the eye, and said grrr, and challenged it. So he liked persons that were, not just brazen, but could prepare themselves and take on the misconceptions and establish the theistic conception. So he liked that. With qualification, not willy-nilly. So he liked that. And as he had courage, that those that had courage, and will go to, Brahmananda went to Africa. Brahmananda, big-bodied fellow from a Jewish family, went to Africa to getting people to chant and dance in the villages, African villages. He liked it. Bold. For the mission. Okay. I see one hand, and you have the last question.
So when he was trying to oppose in a nicer way the theory of Darwin, how difficult was it to make people understand in this Western world?
It has to do with chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. And if one has clarity and conviction in chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita, everything rests on spirit, not everything rests on matter. And there are different ways of saying the same thing. I'll just share something with you because you're asking the question. At University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana is a prestigious place. I mean, it's a prestigious place. People that from out of the country, they may not know. People in the country know. It's not Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and that caliber, Ivy League school, but it's a prestigious place. So I was at that place about a week ago or so. And one of the slides I showed, I was trying to help them understand this topic, that the chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. Our real identity is we're spirit soul. So one of the slides showed that from the body of a human or other species, there's photons of light that come from the body, so that like when is enlightened, there's an effulgence. Less than enlightened, there's still some light, and it's measurable by photons. So the question came at the end: photons are material. How does a photons or material indicate the presence of the soul? And then it's a principle, because spirit moves matter, not matter moves spirit. It's because the presence of the soul, when the soul is absent, there's no photons. When the soul is present, there's photons. Spirit moves matter. Photons are material, and you can measure them. You can't measure the soul, but you can measure photons, light, particles or measurements of light. That's a yardstick. That's a material. But you can tell the presence of spiritual because, and then when the soul is gone, there's no light. There's no photons. Okay. Now that's a materialist that has, he's a postgraduate guy, a grad student and a postgraduate student in this assembly. So how do you convince them? Something that they know, then something that they don't know, and help them through something they know to understand something they don't know. It depends on the audience how you go about it. But the principle is simple. If you understand the principle and understand we're not the body. And there are different ways of explaining it. There's without other examples. Something that's known. You're dealing with somebody through their empiric evidence. Now this is sense perception. There's 3 ways of knowing. Sense, reason, and shabda. So it's just sense perception. You can measure it. Then there's other examples and other examples. And then there's shabda. And that's how you can really know. And how you can know just by shabda. That you can't know without shabda. Thoughtful people... So it depends on the audience how you convince them. But something that they know, and then they buy into it, and then something that's unknown through something that they know. Something wiggles over here, and it's because there's something over there. The cause and effect. And it's intelligent people thoughtful people can understand. Subtle moves the gross. Mind moves matter. And there's something more subtle than mind. There's something more subtle than intelligence. And that's the soul. It's all resting upon the soul. And that's resting upon the Supreme Soul. So thoughtful people, they may not be able to see with their eyes, but they can understand through sound. That's how. And the authority of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And some people don't know. And one of the students in that audience was a fellow from Mexico. So when I began this presentation, I said, "Is there anybody in the audience that needs an introduction to what is Bhagavad Gita?" Because they're all Indian grad students. So we spent 40 minutes. Giving him an introduction to Bhagavad Gita. 3 days later, one devotee, Parama Karuna Das, Gopal Krishna Maharaj's disciple, was visiting, and this fellow came and he bought 2 Bhagavad Gitas. And he brought a friend with him, and he bought a copy for his friend, because he was now convinced. Just because he's intelligent, he didn't know nothing about nothing, but he came and he heard, And I'm this little guy, but because the message is so clear, it was spoken with clarity for somebody who doesn't know. It's clear. Now he wants to learn more, and so he's on the track to learn more. So now he's hooked up to a little reading group, and he's going to read together with others Bhagavad Gita and understand more. Just by hearing. A thoughtful person. Srila Prabhupada ki Gaur Premanandi. The picture went away. What happened? Is that what happened?
It's something to do with the project.
Okay. Okay, I don't go away yet. I have some Mahaprasadam, so I'll be disappointed if you go away before I give you. Let's put it just down.